All right, all right. What another amazing, incredible, awesome, wonderful, whatever kind of day you want it to be. And this is Dr. B, and we're so excited to just have different people who are doing exciting things that are making life work in a big way. And our guest today, you're going to find not just interesting, but insightful. You're going to find probably things. This is going to be one of those there's somewhere you just enjoy the stories. You get to sit back, you get to go, oh man, it was fun to watch. And then there's those podcasts that you get on and you go, not only was it enjoyable, but I didn't get to relax. I got to learn things. I actually had to take out my pen and paper and I had to write down stuff. Right now, I know I told you this before, but when I used to watch podcasts or, I would be rushing through the podcast and somebody would say something and I would be trying to write it all down and I couldn't, get it all written down before they got to the next thing. And I forgot on a recorded podcast, all I had to do was push pause. Then I could actually write it down and then go back and go. So I'm rushing through and I got all these notes that I can't read. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I just have to push pause. I even did that just the other day. I did it again, just like, don't write it. When you're online and there's videos, you can always push pause and then you don't have to try to write stuff down. And so, as we go today, Ryan and I got to spend some time in I did Bedford Spring, somewhere in Pennsylvania, that we were at a result, and we just had a great time together. And I have to get you on. There's so many amazing things that you're doing with your life. And I'm going to let him save some of that for the story. And I'm going to ask him to tell his story. I know a little bit about his story, but and Ryan, you can start from when your mama birthed you out all the way till now, or you can start in between. There is no time limit on your story because what I realize is people love to know who you are before we start talking about all the other wonderful things that you do in order to make this planet a better place. So I'm going to give you that time. So Ryan, thank you for being on today. Thank you for taking your time with me so that we can all become better human beings. And the floor is yours. I can't wait to hear your story.
Hey, thank you, Dr. B. I really appreciate you inviting me on the podcast today. And I just love the title of your podcast. We can just start right there because all of us need to live boldly. There's so much chaos and so much suffering in this world that living boldly is what it takes. And I hope that I embody that, and I hope to convey some of that to your audience today. So
yes.
I won't
can't wait to hear it.
Yeah. So I don't think I'll start all the way back at I was born at, but I did grow up in Northwest Arkansas. So I'm a Midwestern born and raised child, enjoyed the outdoors growing up. I was in Boy Scouts and became an Eagle Scout. And that's where I really got my love of the outdoors. And you'll hear that come back in later when I talk about the company that I started just a few years back. But before I get to that story, I took a different path initially with my life because I wanted to learn how to fly airplanes, and I can admit that I am a Top Gun 1 generation. That's me. I was a kid when I first saw Top Gun, the very first one, and it captured me. That idea of flying airplanes and being an aviator seemed like a really good thing to do, and the Navy had a great publicity with that movie, and so I applied to all the academies so that I could go there, become an officer, and learn to fly. I didn't get into any of the academies, but what I did get instead was a Reserve Officer Training Corps scholarship. And so I was able to go to any college of my choice that had a Navy Reserve Officer Training Corps unit, and I chose to go to Purdue University. And so I went to Purdue. I studied engineering for 4.5 years. And after I graduated, I got commissioned into the Navy the following day. So I'm actually still in the Navy today, 29 years later.
Oh
I
my
will
gosh, that's so cool.
I will be retiring later this year. And so I just have to give the disclaimer that everything I say today is Ryan Batchelor's opinion and does not reflect on the Navy in any way, shape, or form or
I
manner.
love it.
So, so I went to flight school with the Navy and I learned to fly airplanes. Uh, Top Gun was flying a very fast and agile aircraft that was able to flip around in the sky very quickly. Um, they put me in one of those planes, and I promptly got very sick.
Uh-oh.
And that sounds really funny for a pilot to say, but I was fine in the larger planes that flew slower and were less maneuverable. But those planes that you see in all the movies, all the jet aircraft, my body just didn't want to do that.
Mm,
So I flew larger aircraft. I flew a plane called the P3, which was the size of a C-130. So it
okay.
has 4 engines. My wife was really happy because it's a very safe aircraft. Um, and so it was great. I learned to fly it. Our primary mission was to track other countries' submarines. So I got to take the plane, fly it close to the coasts of other countries, and then use particular methods to find their submarines and then track them. And it was great
Oh
fun.
wow.
Yeah, we had a
Yeah.
great time. I got to deploy to Japan in 2001, and then I deployed to the Middle East in 2003. And both of those, I did a lot of flying. 2003, I happened to be in the Persian Gulf when Operation Iraqi Freedom started. Um, and so I spent 59 missions over Iraq and
Oh
nine
wow.
over Afghanistan. Now, you're probably going, wait a minute. You said your plane was used to track submarines, and there's no submarines over land in Iraq or Afghanistan. And you're right.
Okay, good. I was wondering how that works.
Yeah. But our secondary mission was intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. And
Okay.
we had some tools on board that could help out the ground troops as they were moving into different areas. And so that's what we did when we were flying overland Iraq and overland Afghanistan is we were communicating with the troops on the ground and we were telling them everything that was ahead of them so that they knew what to expect when they were coming up. So I take solace in the fact that I probably preserved lives in one way or another because they knew what was coming. There was nothing that was a surprise to them because we were telling them everything that was out in front of them.
Oh, that's
Um,
so cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was
Just real quick question while you're saying, so the bigger planes, they don't like, do they land on the aircraft carriers as well? Or you're on a base
no.
somewhere that you're taking off and then going out to the ocean where you see submarines?
Yeah. Yeah. We were at various bases. We have bases all around the world that we can land at, and then we go and hunt submarines in whatever water they ask us to go find them in. And then sometimes they say, "You're not hunting submarines today. You're going to go do some intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance." And we fly
Gotcha.
over land, and we do that too.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm understand now. I do want to ask though, like the submarines are so incredibly deep, and so you just like flying back and forth with all kinds of instruments to try to find where they're at, and it's got to be super hard to do. I'm assuming that it's
Yeah.
not
Well,
this.
the submarine's job is to be silent and not be found. Right.
Okay.
So it's a game of cat and mouse.
Okay, gotcha. Like in real life, even though we see it on TV, we like, no, this really is how it works. Like nobody really wants to be found when they're down there. So that's good to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, if you've seen the movie The Hunt for Red October, then you've seen a little bit about how they try to find submarines, and so
Yeah.
that's the kind of things that we could do.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it was good stuff. I enjoyed it, and after I did some of that flying in 2001 and 2003, I moved into a different area of the Navy where we buy the things that the Navy needs. And so since then, I've been buying the aircraft that the Navy needs. And so I've been working to make sure that we buy things at the cheapest price that we can and buy exactly what the fleet needs, and get it out to them as quickly as possible. And so I've provided a whole slew of new aircraft and new weapons out to the fleet in the time since I was flying overland Iraq and Afghanistan.
So I'm just so curious about this. That's why I'm stopping you in the middle of your story. But so you're buying planes. I'm assuming these planes aren't built yet. It's not like you go to a used car lot or a new car lot and I'll take that one and that one, right? So
That's
you're
right.
buying it before it's built, and then you're asking the defense contractor to be able to build it at that point.
Yes.
And as you've been doing that, I mean, I saw something on 60 Minutes not too long ago with like this AI genius kid who's making all these weapons and stuff. And he's actually saying that he's making them first. And some of the defense contractors are struggling because he's already showing up with the weapons that are already created, not like buy it first and then go build it. Like I'll build it and then come buy it with all the AI and all that kind of stuff with it. So is that kind of how it's going to turn to? I mean, you'll be retired, so you're not going to be buying off the
That's
shelf,
right.
but is that kind of how it's starting to move? They show you some parts and that kind of stuff, or it's just a little.
I mean, we work with the contractors from the concept all the way to
Okay.
getting it built and delivering it to the fleet.
Okay.
And then even once you do that, there's normally sustainment that you have to worry about to make sure that the aircraft stays relevant,
Mhm.
and can still be flown for decades. Because once we buy an airplane, we keep it for a really long time. So, if you're familiar with the B-52, it's been around for over 70 years now. So
Yeah.
we keep it for a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah, I also saw a special where they were just talking about how they all these different concept planes that the military from the, like, I guess back from World War I all the way till now, and some of the things that folks put together, like a flying saucer type things, or
Yes.
platforms where the guy standing outside with a gun and it's like a hover thing, and a whole bunch of them failed, but there were some really good ones that. Like you said, like the B-52 that just lasts forever, and why replace it because it's built so well.
Yeah. There's a lot of innovation that's going on. We don't typically do things very fast. And,
Mhm.
the AI genius guy that you were talking about, he's able to do things fast. And that looks really good. It turns out when you try to scale that, it's much harder.
Oh gosh, yeah,
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
imagine. But are other countries like China and I guess I don't know who all has weapons. Russia, I guess, are they at a faster pace on some of this development innovation than we are, or is it just
In most of the things that you talk about, the United States is still the leader.
okay?
There's a few areas where other countries are ahead of us in things, and we've identified what those are, and we're trying to make strides to catch up and then exceed their
Mhm.
capabilities. I would say those are few and far between.
Okay, gotcha. And then I guess I guess you weren't buying planes, but I'm hearing that we don't have enough ships, or we need more ships, and ships just take forever to build. And
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't do the ship side of things, but it's similar to aircraft in that we've got a bunch of really old ships. We don't have enough new ones, and the shipyards take a really long time to build one, and we don't have very many shipyards, right? So it's a
gotcha.
scarcity kind of thing, and it's a capability that's really hard to build up. So it takes a long time, right? If you wanted to improve it, it's a 10 to 20-year project.
Gotcha. Now, I guess I have one more question because and you are in the Navy, right? So I'm just thinking of like all the Navy movies that I watch, and like those Navy divers that are got all the tubes behind them, and they're down there walking on the bottom, and the one where they make the guy put jump all the bolts and make him put it all together. I can't remember the name of
Yeah.
that movie. Is that still like alive for people that want to be in the Navy? I want to be a Navy diver, and or has technology changed a lot so it's not as hard,
I
or is it just?
Yeah, I mean, the suit is different than the suit that you see in that movie, but there's still jobs out there as a Navy diver, and there's still jobs out there diffusing weapons that are underwater, and the Navy is the only one that does that. And so all those jobs are still out there. It looks a little different than it does in the movies, but it's
Of
there.
course. All right. So back to your story. I'm sorry. Those are some really cool things that
Yeah.
I got to learn today. Me being
No,
selfish.
that's fine. It's all good. In the course of my Navy career, I've had the opportunity to be in a few leadership positions. I was an executive director for aircraft operations, which meant we were in charge of policy and manning and training for 64 facilities where we were flying brand new aircraft that were built by the contractors. And so I was in a leadership role there. And then I was the commanding officer of a defense contract management agency in St. Louis, Missouri. I had 265 people under me. And currently, I lead a team that is working to integrate MQ-25, which is an unmanned tanker that will take off and land on the aircraft carrier that will refuel all the planes that are on the aircraft carrier in flight. And so I've had the opportunity to have a number of those leadership positions in the Navy. And what I discovered in the course of that was that the activities that I was doing to develop the people that were on my team were the things that I enjoyed the most. And so my wife began asking me at some point, "What are you going to do when you get out of the Navy? Because this train doesn't ride forever." Um, and the reason I'm getting out this year is because it's a mandatory retirement.
Oh, there's
So
you're not letting you stay anymore. You have to go do something else or
that's right.
watch TV all day every day, right?
That's right. A lot of people don't realize the military is an up or out promotion system. So if you're looked at for promotion and you're not selected a couple times, then they say thank you for your service. Um,
Okay.
and so my next rank would be admiral, and I'm not selected for admiral. So that's mandatory retirement. So my wife started asking me, "What are you going to do when you get out?" And I gave her a long list of things that I was not going to do. Um,
Mhm.
you know, I did not want to go fly for an airline. I did not want to go do some of these other things. And she's like, "Yeah, we're not going to talk about that list anymore. We're going to talk about what you are going to do." And I didn't really have a good answer for her
Uh-oh.
because I had always just said what I wasn't going to do. So
Mhm.
uh, uh, happenstance would have it that I had a nonprofit in St. Louis that contacted me because I am a working genius facilitator for Patrick Lencioni. And he is the author of Five Dysfunctions of a Team. And he does some really great work in terms of making an organization as healthy as it can be. So he looks at the culture of an organization and he has tools in place to address the challenges of the culture in
Mhm.
organizations to make them better so they can execute their mission better. And so I found all of his material to be really engaging and I got certified by him. And it turns out at the time that this nonprofit contacted me, I was the only facilitator in
Oh,
St. Louis
really?
that was
Okay.
doing the Working Genius work. And so they contacted me and they said, "Hey, can you come train our organization on this Working Genius concept?" And I said, "Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. I just have to get permission from the Navy to do that because when you're involved in national defense, they don't really like you doing anything else."
Mhm.
And so
Gotcha.
so I told them, "Hey, I'm approaching mandatory retirement. Is this something I could go do?" And they gave me permission to go do that. And so I went to this organization and I spent a half day with them, walking them through Working Genius, and I found every moment of it to be absolutely exhilarating. And so I went home and I told my wife, I said, "I've got the answer." I said, "This thing I did today was fabulous. I was like, I want to be able to work with multiple organizations, help make them better so that they can execute their mission the best possible way. And I said, that's what I want to do full time. And so I said, the Navy is going to allow me to do it part time now. And then I can move into full time once I retire. And she said, sounds like a plan. So after that, I went and got John Maxwell certified. So I'm certified as a John Maxwell speaker, coach, and trainer. And
Mhm.
so what I have found is that the John Maxwell material and the Patrick Lencioni material meld very well together, because John Maxwell's material basically will target different aspects of your leaders. It'll target communication, it'll target time management, it'll target the ability to develop people. And all of those things are good. But if the culture of the organization is still terrible, then those are only going to have limited effect. But
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you fix the culture first, then the effect that those Maxwell pieces can have is amplified. And so what I like to do is work with an organization, find out what their challenges are, address them with the Patrick Lencioni tools, and then start to mature all the leaders with the John Maxwell material. And I've found that to be fairly helpful thus far for the organizations that I'm working with.
Cool. So did you end up, so you're working for one of the organizations, or organizations come to you and then they find you and then you start working with them?
Yeah, organizations come to me, and then we
Okay.
kind of explore what their challenges are, and then we come up with a plan for them that is specific to their organization and their challenges, and then we work on that over time. And what I really enjoy about that is that I get to know the people in their organization, because I'm not
Mhm.
just working with them once. Yes, that's how this started, with working with a nonprofit in St. Louis, but they're still my client today, 3 years later. And so I know the names of people in their organization. I know, the positions that these
Mhm.
individuals are in. I've watched some of them mature and move up in the
Oh,
organizations. And then
yeah.
I have been able to see those organizations execute their mission. And they invite me to, many of their events,
Mhm.
so that I can get a glimpse of how the organization is moving forward, and how they are advancing what they were put there to do every single day. And so I kind of look at this as like, I've been in the military for 30 years. I've always had a very clear mission with the Navy. And now outside the Navy, I can go and I can work with multiple organizations and help them perform their mission even better. And that gives me a lot of purpose still.
Yeah. One of the things I'd love to ask you, when I think about it, I'm probably backing up just a little bit. I thought I'd turn this phone off, but yeah. So when I think about identity, and I usually ask people, what was your identity like when you were a kid compared to what it is now, and what are those identity changes? But for you, you've been in the Navy so long, almost 3 decades, and your identity is the Navy and everything that the Navy comes in. All of a sudden, you venture out into this thing that you like, but I would love to kind of hear what your thought process is as, wait a minute, I'm not going to be known as this, I'm going to be known as that. And what, kind of in your mind, what are some things that you're doing, whether it's personal development wise, or it's, just people that are around you who are telling you that you're kind of working with, that is going to move that identity from who you've been to who you're becoming.
Yes, that's very true. And um, I mentioned earlier that I grew up in Northwest Arkansas, and that I was really involved in the outdoors. And
Mhm.
so when I founded the company, after I initially did this uh, working genius session with the nonprofit here in St. Louis, I formed the company called Crux Leaders. And it's really a combination of my leadership passion and my passion for the outdoors and climbing mountains, because um, the most difficult part of any climb, whether you're rock climbing, whether you're ice climbing, whether you're just on a hiking trail, whatever the most difficult part of that is called the crux. And
Mhm.
so that what I do is I help organizations get past their most difficult challenges,
Okay.
what their crux is, right? And so my option was to either say, hey, uh, try to stick with the aviation kind of pedigree that I had, or reframe everything in terms of this outdoor ethic that I have and that I enjoy. And when I kind of took a look at that, what I determined was that my passion was definitely with the Navy and with flying for
Mhm.
many years here. Um, uh, but as my kids have gotten older and I've been able to take them outside and get them exposed to the outdoors and start climbing with them, I found that my passion was growing more for the outdoors than it was to continue with the aviation piece. And so I've really worked to try to take Crux leaders and base everything off of that outdoor ethic rather than the Navy piece. That being said, um, the Navy is where I got all my experience, and I don't want to discount that. And
Yeah.
so almost all of my talks start with some story from the Navy, right?
You have to.
Depending on what my audience is, I usually try to tell a Navy story, and everybody finds those to be particularly engaging. And so I'm not giving up on that at all. I'm certainly not gonna say that it wasn't important because it formed who I am today, and it gave me the experiences that I'm using to help organizations do what they do better. And so I don't want to give up on that, but there is a bit of uh, of pivot to the outdoor piece that I'm more interested in now.
Well, that's cool. And when I think about, your whole career in aviation, and this will probably be a really bad analogy, but one you'll understand. I've been watching old episodes of The $6 Million Man, which is a show that you and I know that's from back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And he was a test pilot or whatever, and then he, crashes and they make him bionic. And for those of you who don't know, they spend $6 million to make him. Now he's a spy for the government agency. But every single episode has an airplane in it. So I'm thinking whoever the writers were of the show make sure that he's either flying a plane, in a plane, watching a plane, is doing something in like all 5 seasons of the show. And then I'm thinking about your life and going, okay, you've been doing aviation for so long, and now you're not. I mean, I assume right now you're still around planes all the time, or something that has to do with planes. And then when I think of your leadership and who you're working with, and there might not be too many airplanes in that, will you be able to like wake up in the morning and go like, "Where's the airplane?"
Right. Yeah, and that's certainly a viable concern. And since I have spent less and less time actually flying aircraft, the longer I've been in the Navy,
Mhm.
um, it's while I'm still around airplanes most of the time, and like I can still drive over to the assembly line today for MG-25, and I can watch the plane being built. Um, I have gotten a little more used to not being around them every day.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that I still won't drive up to the air show, and it doesn't mean that I won't pop in Top Gun Maverick every now and then to watch it. Um,
Okay.
because I still love airplanes, and aviation is still amazing, and it will always be kind of on the cutting edge of things. And so I find that certainly interesting, but I've over the last couple of years, I've gotten to the point where it'll be okay if I'm not touching or in an aircraft every single day.
Okay. Cool. Now, I also you're a dad, correct?
I am. I have 9 kids, Dr. B.
Yeah. Yes. And so I want to talk about. Well, I want to know, how you do some of the stuff, but I really want to talk about, right now. One of the things that we talk about a lot in our society is that how important it is for kids to have a mom and a dad, and to have a dad in their life, and to be there for them, and to make sure that that they nurture them and help them grow up, and as an examples. But one of the things we don't talk about a lot is what it means to be a dad and how it has filled your life and the empty parts or made your Navy experience so much better or the things that you've been wanting to do. So I just want to kind of just with 9 kids that you got to tell me all the experiences or not all of them, but what just made you love to be or makes you not love to be not with the D to be this dad and some of and what just lights you up about it.
Yeah, I appreciate that question, and one of the reasons that my wife and I made the decision that I would buy things that the Navy needs instead of doing as much flying as I possibly could was so that I could be home more.
Oh,
When I deployed in 2001 and 2003, I didn't have kids at the home. We hadn't had any of our kids yet, and so after that, I did have the opportunity to be home more. And really, the reason why we chose to do that is because um, the culture speaks loudly to our families, and so we need to be there to either reinforce what they're learning in the culture or say, hey, this is not right. This is not the way that we operate best. And let me show you an example of
Mhm.
why we do things the way that we do. And I think having that example and being able to understand that the reasons that we do things and the why behind why something might look different than the culture is doing is really important. And you have to be present to show that. You have to be. You can't just say it over the phone. You can't just put it in a text message because parents and leaders in organizations have a similar issue that they have to address, and that issue is that they're being watched. If you're a
Mhm.
parent, you're being watched by your kids, and if you're a leader, you're being watched by everybody on the team. And there's one thing that they're watching for, and that thing that they're watching for is to make sure that your words and your actions line up, right? Because if you say one thing, but you do another, then the message has completely been watered down and no one will pay attention to it. But if you say something and then you do something that supports what you said, now you have buy in. And parents need buy in from their kids, and team members uh, or leaders need buy in from their team members. And when you have that buy in, then you can all move forward on the same page. But without it, everybody's going different directions and it's just chaos.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I've been working on a project now that where as I've been coaching people on this thing, what you're just talking about, alignment. Because it is, I mean, the biggest thing why people don't move forward and they set all these goals. We're at the beginning of the year as we're recording this. And I've talked to all these people who set all these goals and they're like, but you're not in alignment with what you say, who you think you are and what you really do all the time. Like the health is a great example. All these people going to the gym, right? And they say, well, my body is my most important thing. I take care of my body and I do everything. I'm like, with all those donuts and how much time do you exercise? And, how much time do you spend, drinking and breathing? And I see, all the beer and everything that you bring in and like, oh yeah, that kind of doesn't go. But I love that lessons from a dad that's saying, wait a minute, it's just as important as it is in my life at work and all the other things I do, is that my kids get to see that I'm in alignment with the things that I say. And that's an important part of who you are. Do you think now that you'll be retiring, that you'll spend more time with your kids with all these incredible lessons, or you'll start teaching them how at some point to be? I know, like right now, I'm calling on my grandkids individually, now that they're getting older, they're trying at least once a month where I just have a conversation alone with them. I'm like calling their mom saying, like last night I said, can Jalen call me today? Because they live in California and they're not real close to where I'm in
Yeah.
Denver. And so Jalen called me. And so we had like a 45, maybe a half hour talk. And he's in 4th grade. So it was this intense time. But some of these lessons that you've been learning, are there certain ones that you would say this is something I learned and don't do again, or is it something, just that first one was just amazing. So I want to hear more.
Yeah, certainly. And I appreciate that. You have more experience with grandkids than I do. But we have our oldest child that has a 10-month-old. So we're just
Okay.
figuring out the grandparent thing. But I still have multiple kids that are living at home, and so my wife and I will both have our own business. My wife already has her own business that she works in, and so we plan to be able to have some flexibility to be home more, to be able to do some traveling with the kids and the family when they have breaks, and be able to spend a bit more time with them than we might have been able to in the past. But some of those things that we want to continue to drive home is one is that community matters, and
Mhm.
our family does a lot of I'll just say service to our community, whether that's through working with nonprofits, whether that's through volunteer efforts, whatever it might be. And while each individual time we do that, I may not necessarily see the roots of that growing inside of my kids. What I've seen from my four that have now left the house is they're all in public service one way or another. I have two in the military, one is a nurse, and one is going to be in law enforcement, and so they're all in public service. And so I looked at that and I was like, oh, that's because we taught them that it's important to be involved in your community. It's important to care about other people, and it's important to make sure that you're concerned about more than just yourself,
Yeah.
because there's so much more to life than just what's going on with you. And there's 8 billion other people in the world that and some of them need your help, and so that's why we're put here. And for the first 30 years of my life, the way that I helped was being in the military. I'm in the military so other people don't have to be, and so that I can protect their freedom to choose to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And that's what I've done for 30 years. Now I'm going to go and help multiple other organizations do what they do best. And the nonprofit that I work with in St. Louis, honestly, they work with the population in St. Louis that is the most downtrodden. That they work with the population that most people want to ignore, and I'm helping them do that better. And so, that just continues the mission that I've always had, and I hope to pass all those lessons on to our children, as it looks like maybe we have with those that have left the house already.
Oh, it was so cool to me when my last child that was in the house, graduated from high school. I could go, hey, at least we got there. But I didn't realize how much more work it still was. You know?
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
And the ones that come back. Tell me a little bit, because obviously you can't get to the levels in the military that you've got to without being a compassionate, good leader that people want to follow. They would have xed you out a long time back before. Talk to me a little bit about your faith and your belief system that has allowed you to become such a leader, and just kind of the character of a man that can be a leader and still have all these principles that go along with who they are.
Yeah. So, I've called the type of leadership that I espouse to servant leadership. I didn't make up the term, but that's what I call it. And it's really I outlined it in 6 different pillars when I took over command of the group in St. Louis, and those 6 pillars actually spelled a word called ignite. Um, and so the 6 pillars are integrity, growth, neighborhood, integral, thinking critically, and ethic of work. And those do derive from my faith in God. I am a believer in God and His Son, Jesus Christ. Not everybody has to have that as their foundation, but I do. And so some of those grow out of that, and others just grow out of the opportunity that we have to impact other people. And so, integrity is about that alignment that I talked about and that we discussed before. You know, if you're going to say something, then do it. Um, Growth is all about having personal growth and making sure that those around you are also growing. I have a personal growth plan that I do my best to follow every single day. Now today, it's currently 2:45 where I am. I still got a little bit of work on my personal growth plan to do for the day here. So I got to work on that. But like I said, one of the joys that I found in my military experience has been the time I spent building into others and making sure that they were maturing to be able to take over for either the position I was in or the positions that other people were in that were important. Neighborhood is all about community. And when our organization came out of COVID, one of the first things I tried to do is get us back into the local community, whether that was through working at a food bank, whether that was doing canned food drives, whether that was trying to volunteer somewhere. We worked really hard to make sure people got back into the community. And Integral is all about teamwork. We spent a lot of time developing our team leads and developing our teams themselves to make sure they were as healthy as they could possibly be. And that fifth pillar was think critically. Man, critical thinking goes a long way towards solving problems. And if you don't have a workforce that can think critically, then they're just relying on a few people in the leadership to make all the decisions, come up with all the ideas. And the fact of the matter is that sometimes the best idea lies with the person who's doing the task most often. And so you need to get their ideas. And so I need every person in the organization thinking critically. And then that last piece was just ethic of work, right? I believe that it's important to come to work and do your best and then go home and do your best there. And if you're worn out at one, it will come at the expense of the other. And so you have to make sure both are healthy. If I work too much, then home suffers. If I'm home too much, work suffers. Neither one of those is a good situation. So we want to be at a point where people come in, they do a good job, and when they are done with that work for the day, they go home and they can do a good job there as well.
Oh, that's so cool. You brought up the word community and how important community is. And, I believe God created us for community and to be in community. But, trust is one of those big things that, we have to figure out, what are the things that we're doing? Like one of the things you said is being a person who says what I do and do what I said so people can begin to trust you. And I know in the military, trust is everything. It's life and death if you can't trust the people that you're around. How do you help in some of your work situations or, as you're moving to outside of the military, the things you're doing with leadership, that you can help people foster or learn how not to only trust others, but to be a person that others can trust?
Yeah. The first thing there is to go in with no judgment, right? Because what I've discovered, whether it's in interacting with people in the military, whether it's been through the leadership work I do, whether it's in the volunteer organizations, you never know the true and entire circumstances behind somebody. So you may look at somebody, it may be the person that's standing on the corner and asking you for $1, right? But you don't know what's going on in their life. You don't know the medical situations that may be behind that. You don't know whether they have trauma from either their upbringing or whether they had some experience early on in their life that has scarred them since then. You just don't know the true story. You can probably count on one hand the number of people in this world who you actually know enough of that information about. Everybody else you don't. So you go in with no judgment, right? If you're working at a food bank and people are coming in to get food, right? There's no judgment there. You greet them, you make them feel welcome, you get them what they need, and you send them on their way. And the results of that are not up to me, right? Like this is where I go back to my faith. Like God's gonna take care of that, right? If they use it for good or they use it for bad, that's not on me. And so there's no judgment from my piece. That's the first piece. The second piece is just making sure that you have value in people, right? That you see more than just value in yourself. There's value in the people that are around you, and there's value in the people that you're interacting with. The statistics say that you become the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yep.
Right. So take an inventory of who you're spending time with, because that's how you're being influenced. And if the 5 people that you spend the most time with are all concerned about themselves only, then that's probably what you're going to become, is someone who's only concerned about themselves. And for me, like, that's not good enough, right?
Yeah.
Because like we said, there's 8 billion people and some of them need your help. And I wasn't given a list of who the exact people are that need my help. I don't think you were either. So we got to go find them, right?
Yeah.
And if we walk in with judgment, we're not going to find them. If we walk in thinking that I'm the only one that matters and I'm the only one that's important and everybody else is below me, then I'm not going to find them. It's just not going to happen. John Maxwell says, put a 10 on everybody's forehead, right? That's go in with the assumption that they are worth investing in. If they're not, like,
Yeah.
it'll show up eventually,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It'll show up eventually. But go in with the assumption that they're a 10. And I think
Yeah.
if you do those 3 things, if you don't pass judgment, if you assume value, you look at everybody as a 10, you have the opportunity to establish that trust. Regardless of socioeconomic class, regardless of racial disparities, regardless of whatever it is, you have the opportunity to establish that trust. Now, if there's something in somebody's background that still keeps them from establishing that trust with you, you probably can't overcome that. And that means that there's somebody else out there for them that can.
It's something what I'm feeling in and understanding about your leadership and your leadership style, and you said it was servant leadership, is when we think about the military, or at least when I think about the military, my dad is ended up hitting a colonel rank in the Air Force, whatever, and he's 86 years old. He's still putting his uniform on and going to stuff. It's like, Dad, you've been out for a little bit of time. But when I think about the military, I think of like leadership by position or authority. Like, you have the rank, so I can tell you what to do and you do it. I mean, that's just kind of my perception of it. But then I talk to somebody who is a leader in the military in a big way, and the first thing he does outside the military is go to a nonprofit, which is all voluntary. Like, we used to have lessons in church was like how to lead when nobody wants to follow, or how to lead volunteers in an army. And to be able to do that and be successful at it, and then to train like a nonprofit organization how to lead when most of the folks that are there are volunteers and stuff. What I guess in your mind and your training and your personal development did you do that allowed you to be able to be so vast in your ability to lead all kinds of people?
Yeah, so I think it's a couple different things. The first thing is that I came into a recognition that type of leadership that we're talking about, that's based on position and it's based on the fact that, hey, I'm the one in charge and I can tell you exactly what to do. That only works in 2 situations. The first is a very short-term situation where a specific task has to be accomplished. And so it works well in a wartime scenario when things are chaotic, when nobody seems to know what's going on, and you can provide clear direction about exactly what needs to be done. People will go do it. But the fact of the matter is that we see that in snippets, and we don't see the trust that was built behind that allows people to go, okay, that person gave me a direction, and I'm going to go put my life on the line to do it. Right. There's a relationship and there's trust that was built behind that. And that's the long game that has to get played by all of these leaders. We see it play out in the short term and what looks like, authoritarian leadership. But it's based on a relationship that was built over time. And so that only works in the short term, and it's based on a long-term relationship that's established. And like you talked about earlier, when you said that people in the military have to trust each other. That's why we go through training scenarios. That's why we train again and again and again and again, so we can learn to trust the person on our right and on our left. In my situation, we had 11 people on our airplane. We had to fly mission after mission after mission. So I knew that the people that were listening to the submarines were telling me the right information. I had to trust them because I don't know how to listen for the submarine. I don't know how to do that. I know how to fly the plane,
Mhm.
but they're the ones listening to the submarine. I have to trust them. And so that doesn't happen on day one. That happens when day one is repeated 1,500 times. Um, and we know that they're finding the submarine, and that if I turn left, like they told me to, that we're going to continue to be able to track that submarine and do what we need to do.
So many good things that you've talked about today. I was so selfish because I was asking you all the things that I wanted to know, and I've been so blessed by just listening to you. And I could do this for hours and hours, and I can't wait for us to spend more time together. But I'm sure there's some things that you wanted to make sure that the group and the audience and the folks that are here watching us today know about you and how to get a hold of you and all that kind of stuff. So I want to give you some time to tell us what you really wanted to make sure we talked about at this podcast, that we talk about the bionic man and all that kind of stuff. So it's even real.
No, I really enjoyed our conversation today, Dr. B. And if that has sparked interest for anyone, I would certainly like them to come and check out my website. That's at www.cruxleaders, C-R-U-X, leaders with an S, .org. And at my website, you'll find a couple things that are, I think, of interest to individuals. The first is I have a free monthly newsletter. It's called The Trip to the Summit. And so you can sign up for that newsletter. There's a subscribe now button on my homepage, and you can put your email address in there, and you will get one email a month from me on the first of the month at 8 a.m. Central Time. You're going to get a newsletter. And that's what I'm using that for. A lot of people think that when people capture your email, that they're going to email you 3 times a day. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to send you my newsletter, and I hope that you get a lot of value out of it. I also have public masterminds that I run, and these are posted on my website. And these are virtual masterminds. I run them weekly. For example, I have one that starts Friday, which is How to Be a Real Success. It's a John Maxwell book. And so we'll be studying that every Friday at lunchtime for the next number of weeks. And I have 10 of those running for the next year. So go in there, look at the schedule, pick the one that works for you, and sign up for one of the public masterminds. And then, if you think your organization has interest in bringing me in as a speaker or consultant, I'd love to do a strategy session with you on that. Those are free, and you can sign up for those on my website as well.
Sweet, that is so cool. Oh my gosh, as I'm thinking, I mean, go to cruxleaders.org. There's so much that you can get out of that to be able to do. So if you're listening to me right now, I'm telling you to go to that right now and do that. One of the things that, as you're telling me your life, it seems like you've had this amazing, incredible life. And sometimes I ask this question and people give me these answers that are just out there. But to me, I don't think you're going to give me that answer. So if you were to go back in time and you were to tell yourself something, they say you're in your 20s, as you're getting ready to be this pilot that's going to, shape the world. If you were going to tell you, now that your older self could go back and tell your younger self something, what do you think you would tell your younger self?
Yeah, I think I would say 2 things in particular. The first one is don't be prideful, right?
Oh,
Like if you've watched the Top Gun movies, right, there's a lot of hubris in there.
yeah.
And I will say, to land a jet aircraft on an aircraft carrier, you do need a bit of hubris, right? Like
Yes.
that's required. But the point is, you need to have enough humility that you can still be able to learn. So don't be prideful. And the second thing is, I would have started on a daily growth habit earlier. I didn't really start doing that until 2017 when I read the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, and that's a John Maxwell book. And out of that book, you develop a personal growth plan. And I've been using that personal growth plan as much as possible, scheduled daily, since 2017. And I believe, honestly, that is the thing that's put me on this path towards Crux Leaders. And so if I had done that earlier, I could be even further down that path and more mature in my leadership than I am today. And so I would have started that earlier. That would be the second thing.
Gotcha. Oh my gosh. I guess my last question would be, as you see your future coming, what are you most excited about over the, of what you obviously we don't know what's going to happen or what's going to jump on us.
Yeah.
What are you most excited about retirement and being able of just, obviously you're not retired like I'm just going to sit and watch TV. But what are
No,
you most
not doing
excited?
that.
Yeah.
So three things there, Dr. B. One is that I want to spend more time with my wife traveling. And so we're going to be able to do that. We enjoy traveling. We enjoy experiencing other cultures, seeing new things. There's a lot of places in the world where we want to go. So I'm looking forward to that. Two, I am going to climb a lot of mountains. So
Ooh.
I want to climb all the 14,000 foot peaks in the United States. There's over 60 of them. I've already climbed 27. So I'm going to finish that list. And then hopefully I'll get some other mountains around the world at the same time. And then the third thing is I want to take Crux leaders to a place where we start doing outdoor leadership retreats. And we'll do some leadership topics at the front end of the retreats. And then we're going to go climb a 14,000 foot peak at the end. And so and we're going to illustrate the leadership concepts that is required for that all along the way. And so I'm looking forward to those three things and doing those in the future.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. Thank you for being on our podcast today. For those of you who are watching this live or watching the next week, Ryan and I are going to be doing a growth, or it's a goal setting workshop powered by AI, where we're going to talk about how to use this thing called AI. That's going to happen this is 2026 on March 17th. So I'd love for you to come there. If you go to becomingthroughaction.live, you'll be able to go to that website and register and be able to listen to Ryan even more. And I'm going to get him in my Becoming the Person Universe community and be able to do some stuff in there as well. So definitely not the end. It's kind of fun that you said, I love the growth, the growth plan concept that you talked about this year. I decided I've had so many people ask me, what do you do every day when you get up, or what kinds of things you do. So I actually started putting one online. It's called the routine.live. And so it is.
I love it.
So I start out with, hey, we're doing some breathing work. Then I'm going to do some, hydration and drink some water. And then I'm doing a short devotional, and then talking about gratitude, and then talking about do some affirmations and talk about the promise you're going to make yourself. So I'm going to try it. I just hit day 7. I decided to do it this year. We'll see how it works, but at least I'll get 365 in there, and it'll be there forever, because anything you put on the internet goes up. But I would love to, maybe even have some lessons from you and hear some things from you in the future of how you do that growth plan. Maybe we can even get together. I'm saying this online, so now you'd be stuck and I guess committed to have to do it. But maybe we could just get on and talk about what that growth plan looks like. I mean, you probably do it in some of your other stuff too, but I would love to just share with other folks, because it's something you've been able to do for over 7 years, and it's helped you become the man that you are. Is something that all of us should be able to look at as an example. So thank you for doing that.
I would love to do that, Dr. B. Let's get it scheduled.
All right. I love it. Well, thank you again for being on today. Folks, don't forget your God's greatest gift. He loves you if you allow him to. The other part of that I love to tell people is you are an answer to somebody else's prayer. And so as you live your life and as you do the things that you do, realize that there's somebody who's looking up to you that you can help in a way that probably nobody else can. God put you on this planet to help that person to get through it. And so we're going to do it. Do you have any one last thought before we exit today?
Thank you very much for the invite, Dr. B. Really enjoyed being on Living Boldly with Purpose.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. All right, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Have an amazing, awesome, incredible, awestruck day. And I can't wait to talk to you on the next one.